From your fryer to the table, it's a quick trip for crispy fries. But how about a crosstown delivery? McCain SureCrisp fries are designed to go from fryer to container to carrier to passenger seat across town during rush hour down a shortcut that wasn't all that short to a doorstep before they hit the table. And that first bite, the crispiness speaks for itself. To the last bite, McCain SureCrisp fries. Go the distance. See how far our fries can take your business at surecrisp.com/delivery.
Welcome to Menu Talk. I'm Pat Cobe, Senior Menu Editor at Restaurant Business, and I'm here with Bret Thorn. Hi, Bret.
Hey, Pat. It's true. I'm Bret Thorn, Senior Food and Beverage Editor of Nation's Restaurant News and Restaurant Hospitality. How have you been?
I've been pretty good, been working hard, traveling around. But I heard you found something new that you wanted to try for our guests today.
Yeah. So as regular listeners to this podcast will know, I recently moved from one part of Brooklyn to a different part of Brooklyn. And where I live now is a very large Eastern European population, including a lot of Russians and Ukrainians. And in some of the grocery stores, they have something called kvass. Holding it up for people who are watching, that's written in Cyrillic. So we're just gonna have to believe that it's kvass. This is a drink that I read about in history books when I was studying Russian history in college, and it is a very low alcohol beer-like product, traditionally made from like old rye bread and rye malt, and you sort of let it sit and ferment a little bit. These days, as I understand it, it's made from concentrated wort. Wort is what you call beer before you ferment it.
Oh,
Then they ferment it a little bit. So it's generally between 5% and 1% alcohol. So about the same level as kombucha, for
yeah.
example.
So it
Um,
fits into the whole trend now of, session beers and lower alcohol drinks.
right, or even non-alcoholic beverages, because
Hmm.
some of those 0% alcohol beers have up to 5% alcohol. And the local Russians and Ukrainians I've spoken to in the neighborhood have said there's no real alcohol in kvass. So maybe it fits into the trends, and I'm going to try it to see if it suits the American palate.
Okay.
See, I'm gonna pour it on camera. There we are.
Yeah.
So we can see.
Oh, it's a
Ooh,
nice color. Yeah, it looks like rye bread.
yeah, I think I'm gonna need to tilt it a little bit. It behaves like beer when it comes to carbonation. Yeah, nice sort of amber to amber color, I'd say.
Hmm.
I don't know if this is a particular flavor of kvass. There are kvass flavors, but I don't read Russian, so
Yeah, so
I
you just
don't.
have to guess, I guess,
Yeah,
and
yeah, and
blind taste.
there's a whole kvass section, sort of. There are many options in Net Cost, which is a Russian chain of which there are several locations. I don't know if they're actually a Russian chain or if they're a company that caters to Russian customers. But if you need all of your preserved herrings and buckwheats and so on, they have it. And also a lot of candy. Russians seem to eat a
Mm,
lot of candy and nuts.
that's
There's a whole
interesting.
row.
And there aren't any in the other boroughs, right? Just in Brooklyn, as far as you know?
Uh, this is the only place I've seen Net Cost.
Yeah,
We could
interesting,
ask our friends at Supermarket News; they might know.
perhaps.
Anyway,
Well, it looks good. Yeah.
it smells like beer, like sort of an amber ale, let's say.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it tastes like beer. It's kvass. Actually, I think means something like sour. So technically, traditionally, it's supposed to be kind of sour. This actually tastes a bit sweeter. It's maltier.
Mm.
And this is not a low calorie beverage. This can is 180 calories, so it's substantial. I believe they add sugar to it to ferment it, and it tastes sweet.
Right.
I'm gonna have to go to some of the bars in my neighborhood that offer kvass and try it there. One of them is a really interesting concept actually that maybe I should share with our audience. It's called tap beer, and it is like a fast casual bar. You walk up to the
Oh,
bar and you order your beer, and they grab sort of a liter plastic bottle and they fill it up and hand it to you, and then you can reach into this freezer where they have frosted mugs, and then you sit down and you pour yourself a beer and you watch sports on the mini television
yeah.
around there. They also serve food. They have sausages and stuff, and they had kvass. And I asked the bartender, I guess, the cashier, combination of both. I said, "Oh, kvass, I've never tried that," and he said, "Well, don't try this one because we're still working on it. Try the next batch." So I like that. I like the honesty. Instead, I
Mm.
had a lager that they made. I thought was pretty good, but I don't think I've ever been to a fast casual bar before, so I thought
No.
that was quite interesting.
It
And I
reminds me of like the cider bars in the Basque Country of Spain, where you go up and you fill your. I mean, it's not exactly fast casual, but you fill up your jug from the wall. There's like spigots on the wall, and you bring it back to the table.
yeah, I saw a place like that in Aurora, Colorado, in Stanley
Mm.
Marketplace. It was not just cider; it was mostly beer, but
Mhm.
also cider, I believe, a little wine, and also some kegged cocktails. And
Mm.
you bought sort of a card that looked like a credit card, and you swipe it, and as you pour yourself your beverage and sit down at the table. So I guess it's sort of similar kind of thing, more automated.
Yeah.
This place in my neighborhood is not at all automated.
Well, I think we have to
Oh,
do a field trip out there with a bunch of people.
come
So
on down.
yeah. Well, I was actually in Houston earlier this week because I paid a visit to Cisco headquarters, which was really interesting. I mean, I've written about Cisco for many years, but have never been to Cisco or Houston. It was actually my first time in Houston.
Oh, Houston's great.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time to explore. I was there for maybe 30 hours total. But I did get to explore Cisco, and they brought in some that they have a division called Cutting Edge Solutions, where they work with entrepreneurial suppliers, people who are trying to bring new products to the food service market. And so they brought a few of them in and showed me, how they pitched their products to Cisco and what their products were like. And we got to taste and sample the different products. It was really interesting.
Were there any particular standout items?
Well, they're sort of embargoed until the fall, but one of the vendors who came in actually introduced something else made with the same material. He's a tequila maker, and he uses agave, recycles agave into straws. He
Oh,
uses like the fibers, and he patented a process where you can make it into a straw material that is, but it's not only compostable, but if it's recycled, it'll be really recycled. It won't, it'll decompose within a certain amount of time. It won't just sit in the landfill.
I love
But
it.
that was really interesting because the straws are really, they're much better than paper straws because they don't fall apart in your drink. And of course, they're, eco-friendly, so they're much better than plastic straws. And he makes them in like several widths, or I guess diameters, so you can use them for a lot of different kinds of drinks. So
So,
that was really interesting. So he was one of the people who pitched that product earlier. Now he has another one that he's bringing in.
well, that's cool. Yeah, so you could have the fat straws, so you could drink your boba tea with it, or
Yeah.
whatever. And yeah, those paper straws just irritate me. I don't, I don't want them.
No, I know, but people still want straws. And then in their cafeteria, they actually use the straws. And they also had some of the products that had been pitched before, like these butterflied shrimp, grilled butterflied shrimp that really come in, the IQF. So they're individual, and it's really easy for a chef to use. And they look really, really impressive. They're kind of large, and you could put them out like you split them and shell them yourself.
Oh, so they're not breaded and fried. They're
No,
oh, so
just
that's
grilled.
nice.
Yeah, really. They were really good. I had them for lunch.
that would be a nice lunch.
Yeah, so that was a really fun experience.
Speaking of lunch, sort of, I had a really, really great dinner last night at the new Bourbon Steak here in New York City, Michael Mina restaurant. And they do an interesting thing with steak. They first poach it in butter using immersion circulators.
Mm,
They gave me a tour of the kitchen, and you have all these circulators lined up with butter and the steak cooking in them. They had great cocktails. Including a Wagyu beef fat washed old fashioned made tableside
mm,
and then smoked. So all the bells and whistles, they put
right.
smoked chips on top of the smoked. And that's fun. And they were charging, I think, like $45 for it or something like that.
For the cocktail?
Yes. And their other cocktails were 24, 26, which is
Normal for New York.
right. Yeah, it's crazy, but that is what
Yeah.
cocktails cost now, especially in Midtown Manhattan. And I mean, this is on Central Park South, so it's very
Right.
fancy neighborhood. It's in the Essex House where Alain Ducasse had his restaurant. That at the time made headlines because it was outrageously expensive at $250 a head, which now is just what fine dining restaurants cost.
Yeah, it sounds like pocket change now.
Right, which is crazy.
It
But
is.
the food was great. We had crab, stuffed soft shell crab in a garlic cream sauce. It was
Mm,
wonderful. And I'm not a big soft shell crab person because I think crab tastes more like crab when it's hard shell, and it
mm.
loses some of its flavor. And often the soft shell crab is just like breaded and fried, and then it just tastes like fried stuff, which is unnecessary. But this was really um, tenderly treated, so
Mm.
it was delicious. And then I found out that the chef at this particular location of Bourbon Steak is Brian Ogden, the son of Bradley Ogden, one of the early practitioners of California cuisine with his Larkspur restaurants and others. So, or sorry, not Larkspur, Lark Creek. Lark Creek was
Right.
Ogden. So that was cool.
Yeah, I remember they went into a restaurant together at one point, I think, out in California. But it's great to see, him succeeding in New York now. And that's one of Michael Mina's restaurants, right?
Right, yeah. Bourbon Steak is a Michael Mina restaurant.
Right.
One of many that
Yeah.
he has, one of many Bourbon Steaks. And if you have an expense account, I recommend it. It was
Well, yeah, I don't get fat washed cocktails. I know I've tried them a number of times. I don't, maybe it's just me, but I don't see a huge difference between a fat washed cocktail and a regular cocktail. But
yeah, it tends to be subtle, and
yeah,
it's fun to watch bartenders, formerly called mixologists. I don't know if we call them that much anymore. To watch them, experiment and flex their muscles and try
yeah.
different things. So
No, it's fun. I mean, it's all part of the show now. So,
exactly.
well, speaking of steak, I had a nice conversation with Laurent Tourondel, who's been in several kinds of different restaurants. And right now he's running one called Skirt Steak, which is also in Manhattan. But we'll get to that later because it's a different kind than bourbon steak because it's actually really reasonable and very limited menu. But he talked about his kind of journey to get where he is today. And he's had a very colorful journey from France to Moscow to Las Vegas, back to New York. So I'm going to play some clips.
Fantastic.
The concept started, there is some similar concept started in France, in Paris, and then and I saw a concept also similar started in Hong Kong. One day during my travel, I had some restaurant in Hong Kong, so I was traveling in Hong Kong a lot, and then one day, during my travel, I say it's kind of interesting because there is one concept like that in Paris, there is one like that in Hong Kong and other cities. And I say I need to bring the concept to New York, so I created my own concept, and we Americanized a little bit because the cut of beef we serve it's skirt steak. Voila, and it's been very popular.
Well, he talked about his journey and how he, started with BLT, the BLT group in New York, and now he has LT Seafood and Steak and lots of other restaurants. One in Sag Harbor where he does pizza, one and also Mexican food, and he does an Italian restaurant in New York. So he's gone into lots and lots of different cuisines, which is really interesting.
I loved BLT steak. It was so good. I mean, it was delicious steak, but their real specialty was their sides, which were, they weren't crazy. They
Mm-hmm.
were, but wonderful popovers for one thing as their bread, but also like roasted mushrooms and creamed spinach, but not throwaways, which is what a lot of the side dishes at steakhouses were at the time, because it was what, 15, 20 years ago that he opened
Yeah.
BLT Steak. And I used to go there. They used to be just a couple blocks away from our offices back when they were on Park Avenue. So that was a fun place to go for a classy lunch or dinner. I really liked it. Creative.
Well, skirt steak is kind of interesting. Skirt steak is a really good value. It's $45 and it's all shareable platters of steak. And that's all they serve is the skirt steak cut, which is a really good cut. It has lots of flavor and juiciness, but it's less expensive than like a ribeye or a T-bone or something like that.
And it's
And,
handled by a capable chef like Laurent Tourondel in Jersey.
mhm. And you get fries, and they also have a wine list. So people, of course, buy wine and cocktails along with the skirt steak and fries. So, and it's really hard to get into. The reservations are really tough.
So it's one of those set menu things where you get the steak and the fries and maybe a salad.
You do get a salad. He talks more about it in this next clip because I just thought it was, we're always talking about how high the prices are in New York,
Right.
and here you can go in and get like a full dinner in a fun atmosphere, and it's only $45 per person, which you could pay $45 just for a piece of steak on your plate,
Or a fat washed cocktail.
right?
It's a good value because we pay attention about the quality of the steak. We serve everything is prime beef, even if it costs us a lot. For $45, you can experience a full meal, and you won't be disappointed because the quantity. It's an 8-ounce steak with French fries as much as you want, a beautiful mixed green salad, and a piece of bread. So it's sufficient.
There actually is a concept like that in New York called L'Entrecote that I just looked it up, and it's still open according to the internet. It's on 54th and Lex, and that's a similar sort of
Mhm.
prefix steak, fries, and salad thing. So
Interesting.
we already have that concept, Laurent. I mean, I'm glad there's another one, and I'm glad that it's being cooked by a very skilled chef like Laurent Tourondel. But
Well, it sounds like they named it after the cut of steak too, entrecote and then
right,
skirt
exactly.
steak. So it depends on what cut you feel like having that night.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, an entrecote is a French cut.
Then we talked about why and how he started a pizza place and a Mexican restaurant because he is French. He's had Italian restaurants, steakhouses, all kind, lots of seafood, but he just got into pizza all of a sudden. So
So this is the one in Sag Harbor, which
right,
is in near the Hamptons, right?
right, out on Long Island.
First, I think the pizza was kind of like a little bit of a hobby for me. The pizza, figuring out how to make a good pizza was kind of like a challenge. And I think at least I came up with a good pizza. And then I was looking for a space, and a space came available inside the village, and I saw it was the right space. We redid the whole restaurant, and then we put a wonderful oven, and then we started to do those great selection of pizza. But you're right, it's more casual than what I used to do. Yes, for sure. But it's also in the village of Sag Harbor and the Hampton in general, there was not much to offer to families with kids. I had a previous restaurant in the past named LT Burger, and we always accommodating big family and kids, and the price point was right. You could bring your kids, and I wanted to create the same environment, a non-white tablecloth restaurant for families.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool. I mean, he's always challenged by trying something new, which I think is great. I mean, Laurent has really reinvented himself a lot of times.
Well, and opening a family-friendly restaurant in some place like Sag Harbor makes sense. And that's the sort of customers that you want. People who might be on a budget, but they're spending for their family, and it's a place they can go more often. And pizza is normally a low food cost item, so they should
Mhm.
be able to be profitable. It's certainly, I think, an easier way to make money than a fine dining restaurant where the cost of everything is so high.
Definitely.
It's hard to make a profit if people do not order drinks and dessert.
Well, he seems to get into every, segment of the industry and every type of cuisine. So very Renaissance kind of guy.
So did he say what kind of pizza it was? Because they have pizza in France, but it's more of a knife and fork situation with
Yeah.
smaller and less cheese.
No, I think this is really more authentic pizza. He has like, the equipment, like a really great pizza oven. You can get any toppings you want. I don't think he has anything too exotic, but he uses some of the local produce from Long Island, which is nice. I mean, it's mostly a seasonal place, I would think, because from maybe May through October, people are in Sag Harbor, but then it sort of thins out during the winter.
And there's great produce on Long Island.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Fabulous.
yes, great way to make use of that, and local seafood also.
So then I asked him, I mean, he did start off as a French chef. So I asked him if he would ever open another upscale French restaurant. And this was his answer.
Never.
Never.
No, why not? I what I like about being a chef is really you could be, if you want, like me, you could be very diversified, or you could spend the rest of your career doing the same thing. Some French chefs do only French food. Okay, well, I decided to learn Japanese, American food, Italian food, and I decided to diversify myself because I thought it was interesting rather than doing always the same style of food. But this is me, so I'm not saying no. I don't say never because it may be an opportunity. It may be an opportunity. Right now I'm working on a very interesting bakery, which I never done a bakery in my life, but I'm doing a bakery with a roaster attached to it. So I need to figure it out how to make it work, and I think it's very interesting.
So he said he would never open a French restaurant, and then he said never say never.
Right.
Which is
But
fair.
it seems like he's trying a lot of different things. He wouldn't tell me where the bakery and roaster attached to it is going to be.
So do you think that's going to be like a rotisserie chicken kind of situation?
I
Or?
don't know. He was. I think it's in the works. I don't think he didn't sound like he had a location for it yet, but he knew what city it would be in. But he wouldn't say because it's still in the works.
I respect that.
Yeah. And then when I asked him, I mean, he's also opening some restaurants in Philadelphia now. I don't know how this guy, sleeps, but he is. When I asked him what's next, we talked a little bit about that just really quickly.
Well, we're opening a grill in Philadelphia and a small pizzeria in Philadelphia also. But the grill, it's definitely a big scale restaurant with 200 plus seats. And it's going to be beautiful, really beautiful.
When do you expect that will be opening?
So we down with the design, and I would say maybe January next year.
So he's constantly exploring new avenues, which I think is fabulous.
Yeah, a big restaurant in Philadelphia, which is a great city. New Yorkers like to dump on Philly, but I really like it there.
Oh, no, I do too. Maybe that's where the bakery will be too.
Maybe. And Philadelphians seem to like to embrace new restaurants. So, I mean, most cities do, but Philadelphia is easy to get to from New York.
Definitely. I haven't been there in a while, but I should really make it a point.
Yeah, it's a fun city.
Yeah, so he was a lot of fun to talk to. He's always doing something new.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds like you had a delightful conversation with him, and it's good to know what he's working on.
Yeah.
And strip steak, I'm glad people can't get in because I want him to be successful. So maybe I'll use my juice to get in at some point.
Yeah. We should try it someday.
Yeah, we could go together. We could do a
Yeah.
live podcast from strip steak.
That would be fun. Well, next week I'm going to be in Atlanta because we have our menu directions conference, and that's ongoing. That's with the non-commercial operators, and that should be fun. They're always very engaging and fun to talk to. So
Yeah, and there's so much interesting activity in the non-commercial space because in many cases they have sort of a captive audience, so they have to keep entertaining and amusing them, and so they can get really creative.
right. Well, what are you up to next week?
I don't know. Our new Informa offices are opening, so
Oh,
I'll be
really?
there for a tour. Yeah, that they will be. We're on the 21st floor now, as you know, because we've been there. We're returning to the 22nd floor, and there will be a podcast studio there in theory. So maybe in a couple of weeks we'll be recording there.
Oh, I would love that. That would be fun. Well, enjoy next week, and I will
Thank you.
report back from menu directions during our next podcast.
And I'm sure something fascinating is going to happen to me, and I'll let you know what it is.
From your fryer to the table, it's a quick trip for crispy fries. But how about a crosstown delivery? McCain SureCrisp fries are designed to go from fryer to container to carrier to passenger seat across town during rush hour down a shortcut that wasn't all that short to a doorstep before they hit the table. And that first bite, the crispiness speaks for itself. To the last bite, McCain SureCrisp fries. Go the distance. See how far our fries can take your business at surecrisp.com/delivery.